next speaker believes that access to quality healthcare is a fundamental human right. An oncologist with a passion for public health and social justice, she currently co-leads a global oncology program at St. George's University of London, bringing together experts from different fields with collaborations in Malaysia, Vietnam, India, and Senegal. Some of her current projects include drug repurposing for cancer, affordable point-of-care diagnostics for cervical screening, and advocacy to equitable healthcare access and cancer service delivery in rural communities. She's here today to speak on how we need a cancer revolution to address the global cancer pandemic and the role Malaysia has to play in ensuring affordable and equitable healthcare for all. Please join me to welcome Dr. Yolanda Augustin.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests. It's an honor to share my Malaysiana story at today's forum. My name is Yolanda Augustin, and I'm a Malaysian clinical oncologist with a passion for global oncology, developing solutions for cancer diagnostics and therapeutics in low and middle-income countries. I have an academic base at St. George's, University of London, but my work currently includes projects in Malaysia, Senegal, Vietnam, and India. I grew up in Malaysia and completed my Form 5 before leaving to study medicine in the UK. However, Malaysia has always remained a very large part of my life, and increasingly, I find myself looking for a path back home. Amongst the Malaysian diaspora, I would say there's definitely a strong sense of patriotism and a desire to contribute to nation building in Malaysia. There's a resonance in the Malay proverb, hujan batu di negeri sendiri, hujan emas di negeri orang, baik hujan di negeri sendiri, meaning it may be raining gold in another person's land, it may be raining hailstones in your homeland, but your heart will still take you back home. Today I'll be sharing my cancer journey and the establishment of Cadet, a center for affordable diagnostics and therapeutics, which is key to addressing so many of the global health problems of our time, including the global cancer pandemic, and is one in which I believe Malaysia can take a leading role. And I hope to inspire some of you to join us on this journey today. So I frequently get asked, why oncology? Why did I choose such a challenging and often depressing specialty? Simply put, it's because cancer affects everyone. And we all have a cancer story, either directly or indirectly. In our lifetime, between 1 in 4 to 1 in 2 persons will experience a cancer diagnosis. And just like the COVID-19 pandemic, no one can escape a cancer story. When I was 21 and deciding what specialty to do at medical school, a dear friend, a couple of years my junior, was diagnosed with a mature teratoma, a cancer of the ovary, just before her 19th birthday. Thereafter, there was shock and disbelief all around, and her family and friends struggled to come to terms with the serious diagnosis in someone so young that came out literally out of the blue, turning her world upside down overnight. What followed was an incredible show of resilience, strength, and humor, as my friend went through surgery and the effects of chemotherapy to eventually make a full recovery. This set me off on my oncology journey, and 20 years later, I am very blessed and I'm thankful to say that she's well and in the audience today, and is actually also a leader at Khazanah. So why women? Okay, it's not just because I went to an all-girls school, and I'm incredibly proud of being an Austintarian, and there's quite a few Austintarians in the audience and at Khazanah. But we know that globally, women and women-headed households have been disproportionately affected by the COVID-19 pandemic in all areas and all dimensions, including healthcare poverty. And this has been confirmed in the Permatang Power Multi-Poverty Index 2021 by economist Professor Fatima Curry, YB Nurul Iza MP, and team. Why global oncology? Well, because over half the world's cancers occur in low and middle income countries where cancer is essentially a neglected disease. And despite significant advances in systemic anti-cancer therapy and radiotherapy, many of these treatments are simply not available to the majority of the world's cancer patients. For example, globally, immunotherapy has changed the treatment paradigm for many cancer patients, significantly prolonging survival and maintaining quality of life. But in Malaysia, one cycle of immunotherapy every 3 weeks can cost a cancer patient up to 17,000 ringgit as out-of-pocket payment. This is a cost that many governments and patients around the world simply cannot afford. Studies have highlighted that at 1 year post-diagnosis in Malaysia, up to 80% of cancer patients and their families experience severe financial toxicity. We need better solutions to diagnose and treat cancer patients and their families more effectively, humanely, and equitably. So I'm sure all of us, or most of us, are searching for ikigai in life, right? Midway through my oncology training, I developed a sense of restlessness. I was privileged to train at a number of excellent centers in the UK, but with knowledge that many of the treatments would not be available in low and middle income countries. A watershed moment was when I was actually contacted by a friend in Sarawak who relayed a story about a young indigenous woman in the Sarawak heartland who had recently been diagnosed with cervical cancer. For those of you who don't know, Sarawak is a beautiful, resource-rich state in Malaysia, but more than half its 2.5 million population actually live in rural settings and are far away from hospital facilities. This lady was 38, she had 4 children, and she'd been bleeding for many months, but she put off seeking help because she couldn't afford the cost of the journey to the hospital, which was 450 ringgit return journey and would take us 6 hours. In the end, when she could no longer stand the pain and the bleeding, she walked for hours with a small child on her back to reach the nearest hospital. She was sadly diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and died a few months later. This story was and is painful to me because we know that cervical cancer is preventable with screening and also treatable if diagnosed at an early stage. It made me realize how we as a global community needed to do better, and it changed my career trajectory. I was fortunate to meet Professor Sanjeev Krishna, an infectious disease specialist at St. George's, University of London, who had spent his career working on neglected diseases in low and middle income countries. As a PhD supervisor and now a dear friend and mentor for life, he empowered me to focus on living ikigai and creating pathways to impact my career in oncology and global health. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we co-founded the Center for Affordable Diagnostics and Therapeutics, Cadet. Cadet is underpinned on principles of scientific research, universal healthcare, social justice, and global collaboration. We work with leading scientists and academia and non-governmental organizations to establish sustainable and affordable development pathways for diagnostics and therapeutics for both infectious disease and cancer. We also consult, engage, and train local healthcare community champions to ensure that our programs are impactful at community level. Our vision is to have Malaysia leading on development and validation of point-of-care diagnostics for cancer, very similar to the RTKs that we now have for COVID, drug repurposing, and also affordable biosimilar manufacturing for targeted anti-cancer therapies. So the question always is, how do we pursue equitable access for cancer care and prevention? And for this, we must focus on reaching and empowering local communities in low-resource settings. One of our focus areas is in the land of the Hornbills, the state of Sarawak. I fell in love with Sarawak early on in my career, and I suppose you can say that I took my passion for Sarawak a little to the extreme and even went as far as marrying a Sarawakian. But to me, as an oncologist and a Sarawakian, and a Sarawakian now that I married a Sarawakian. This represents a chance to actually make a real difference and to ensure healthcare justice for all. Collectively, many of us have campaigned for a Sarawak Cancer Centre for over a decade, and I'm extremely pleased that the Sarawak state government and federal government in November last year finally committed to a new cancer centre for Sarawakians by the end of 2026. And I hope to work there, and we are working together on making it the best possible cancer centre for our patients. But also, it's the resilience and commitment of doctors like PJ Bun, who currently heads the cancer unit at Sarawak GH, who I also have to commend, because despite all the challenges that they face, his centre is actually the leading recruiter for clinical trials in Malaysia for 2021, and I find that incredible. In Sarawak, we're also focused on cervical and breast screening initiatives in rural Sarawak, and a shout out also to Program Rose and Professor Wu Yinling at University Malaya, who we work with very closely. And this basically just shows the Rose program, where women no longer have to go for pap smears using a speculum, but they can actually do a self-sample. And for any woman who's undergo a pap smear, you will know that this is actually revolutionary in itself. And it's painless, quick, and very dignified. And then patients get their results sent to their mobile phone, and they also have a follow-up pathway supporting them through follow-up. To date, we've also trained community champions and educators in our outreach program in Sungai Asap, Belaga, Lawas, Miri, Kuching, Bintulu, and Puncak, Borneo. And we're expanding our program for 2023. Program Rose, to me, is also a great opportunity for us to actually look at the elimination of cervical cancer. And as an oncologist, to actually think that we could actually eliminate a cancer in our lifetime is truly revolutionary. But we can do it, and we can do it within a decade if we have the political will, if we have the collaboration, and if we all come together to make a stand for our women, not just in Sarawak, but throughout Malaysia, and also throughout the global south and other Islamic countries. In Program Rose, we also are developing a see and treat pathway where we no longer have to have the women travel 6 to 8 hours to come to a local hospital for their follow-up if they are positive for HPV. But in actual fact, they could have the test results given to them at the point of care. And this is actually the point of care diagnostic that Prof. Krishna, I think, spoke about yesterday for Quantum DX, which is a platform technology for RT-PCR tests. And then a mobile colposcopy, where the gynecologists can actually do the follow-up at point of care in the village to inspect a woman's cervix if she's positive for HPV. And then a mobile thermocoagulator, where the treatment can also be given at the point of care. So these are the kind of innovations and technology that actually get us oncologists and global oncologists very excited, because suddenly it changes the whole trajectory of women in our society and our capacity to actually diagnose and treat cancer in a timely manner. So mapping the future. Apart from this, we're also accelerating our research and development work with colleagues in Malaysia through Clinical Research Malaysia, the Ministry of Health, and University Malaya. In the short to medium term, within our development pipeline, we have point-of-care tests that we are working on for cervical cancer, nasopharyngeal cancer, another very important cancer in Malaysia, and hepatitis C, a virus that can cause liver cancer. In terms of therapeutics, we have a mature drug repurposing program with a drug called artesunate. Again, I think Professor Krishna spoke about this yesterday. Some of you might remember. And it's focusing on a drug that actually is derived from Chinese traditional medicine that also displays anti-cancer properties. And our program includes a number of target cancers relevant to Malaysians, including colorectal cancer, cervical cancer, nasopharyngeal cancer, and acute myeloid leukemia. And eventually, we hope that once the clinical trials for these indications or particular indications have been proven, we'll be able to actually do tech transfer and local manufacturing in Malaysia. In the longer term, we also have a strategy for biosimilar manufacturing, which basically will be aimed at expanding access to these treatments in low and middle income countries And I think this is another area in which Malaysia has shown true leadership through the work of the Ministry of Health and Dr. Muhammad Razi, who spearheaded the development of an affordable antiviral for hepatitis C in collaboration with DNDi, Drugs for Neglected Diseases, and Médecins Sans Frontières, MSF. And this revolutionary step in drug development actually brought the cost of the average cost of a 12-week course of hepatitis C treatment down from 70,000 USD to 800 USD back in 2021. And this program is now being scaled up for countries in the global south as it represents an affordable option for millions of patients waiting for life-saving treatments. And I believe that we can also do a similar thing with cancer in Malaysia. And just finally, molecular farming. So it was wonderful to hear about Boom Grow yesterday and to see all the innovation that's actually going on in the R&D space for farming. But actually, there's another technology which can bring down the cost of drug development potentially very significantly. So it's a platform technology called molecular farming. And world leaders in this are actually based at St. George's and also working with Professor Yasmin at Professor Julian Ma, and Dr. Audrey Tay, who's also Malaysian, is based at St. George's. And basically, this uses plants to express proteins and potentially drugs. And we're looking at it as a platform for immunotherapy for cancer. And the patent on pembrolizumab comes off patent in 2028. And we're hoping that we can actually develop a development pipeline for immunotherapy using this technology in Malaysia. So I hope that with this whistle-stop tour and bird's-eye overview of what we're trying to do in the global cancer space, you will see that there's definitely an opportunity for Malaysia to lead on healthcare priorities facing the global south, also to create reverse linkage collaborations between Muslim countries through entities such as the Islamic Development Bank, which also has a center of excellence for science, technology, and innovation in Kuala Lumpur, and local governments. And this also represents opportunities for tech transfer and halal sector manufacturing. I think I would just like to say that I do really believe that in all the difficulties that we go through and all the turmoil that the world has faced in the last few years, on many, many levels, from a healthcare perspective, socioeconomic perspective, etc., I do believe we actually have reasons to hope, because we have so many people who are putting their brains collectively into trying to solve some of the big problems that are facing our world today. And I believe that actually many of them are actually in this room as well. And I've been very excited and very encouraged by the spectrum of talks at Khazanah. And I hope that we also will start to think about how we can build this toolbox to steer our way through the storm. And it all will depend on innovation, open collaboration, and us working together. May I end with a quote by the late Dr. Paul Farmer, a global health leader who led Partners in Health and inspired much of the work that we are doing today. Injustice has a cure. And I invite you, my fellow Malaysians, friends, colleagues, leaders, visionaries, and those at Khazanah to join us to be part of the cure and to create these pathways to impact. Terima kasih.